My boss called a meeting to announce my replacement. My husband's girlfriend. For my position. That I'd held for 8 years. She had zero experience. My boss said we need fresh energy. Everyone avoided my eyes. I stood up. Congratulated her. Shook her hand. Walked out. 1 hour later my phone started ringing. Then ringing again. Those 4 words ended 8 years of my life, and Mark said them like he was commenting on the weather. We need fresh energy. I was sitting in the main conference room surrounded by 200 CloudSync employees, watching my boss explain why I was being replaced by a woman who posted smoothie recipes on Instagram. He didn't say my name. He didn't look at me. He just kept talking about evolution, and next-generation thinking, and authentic brand building, while I sat there trying to remember how to breathe. Before we continue, thank you so much for being here. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers, and I'm incredibly grateful for each one of you. If you haven't subscribed, please join our growing family. It's free and truly means everything. Now let's see what happened next. The woman sitting next to him, Amber, her name was Amber, smiled like she'd just won a prize. He probably thought she had. New title. Chief Brand Officer. Good salary. Corner office that used to be mine. She had no idea she was also sleeping with my husband. Or maybe she did know. Maybe that was part of the prize. Amber brings a perspective we haven't had before, Mark continued, gesturing toward her like she was a product he was unveiling. She understands how to build authentic connections with audiences in ways that traditional marketing strategies just can't achieve anymore. Traditional marketing strategies. That's what my work was now. Traditional. Old. Ineffective. Disposable. I'd built CloudSync's entire brand from scratch. I'd written every press release, designed every campaign, secured every media relationship that put this company on the map. When CloudSync was 10 people crammed around folding tables, I was here. When we couldn't afford real marketing software, I was here. When we landed our first major client and everyone celebrated, I was the one who'd written the pitch that closed the deal. 8 years. I gave this place 8 years. And Mark was erasing all of it in one meeting with catered sandwiches and bottled water. We're restructuring to optimize for growth, Mark said, and now he was looking at me. Finally. The pity in his eyes made me want to throw something. Vanessa has been foundational to CloudSync's success. We're grateful for everything she's built. She'll be transitioning to new opportunities. New opportunities. He made it sound like a gift. Like he was doing me a favor by firing me in front of everyone I'd ever worked with. Amber stood up to speak. I'm just so honored, she said, and her voice had that breathy quality of someone who'd never had to fight for anything. I really believe that authentic storytelling is about connecting with people's energy, you know? And I can't wait to bring my vision to CloudSync's brand. My vision. My brand. The one I'd created when she was probably still in college learning how to use Instagram filters. I looked around the room. Jordan from my team wouldn't meet my eyes. Priya was staring at her lap. Elena, my assistant, had tears streaming down her face but wasn't making a sound. The rest of my marketing department sat rigid like they were afraid that moving would make them complicit. But other people were nodding. Smiling. A few were even clapping. Younger employees mostly. The ones who thought fresh energy mattered more than actual results. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Then again. Then again. I pulled it out slightly, glanced at the screen. 23 missed calls. Texts from journalists asking what was happening. Screenshots of an Instagram post Amber had made this morning, announcing her new role before I even knew I was losing mine. In the photo I was visible in the background. Blurry but there. My face showed everything I was feeling right now. Shock, betrayal, pain. And she'd posted it anyway. She'd turned my worst moment into her content. Mark was still talking. We'll have transition meetings this week to discuss logistics. Vanessa will be training Amber on current campaigns and client relationships. Training her. They wanted me to train my replacement. The woman who was sleeping with my husband. The woman who'd taken my job. They wanted me to smile and be professional and hand over 8 years of work like it meant nothing. We're asking everyone to welcome Amber and support her during this transition, Mark said. This is an exciting evolution for CloudSync. Evolution. That's what they were calling it. Evolution required things to die so new things could grow. I was the thing that needed to die. Amber was answering questions now. Someone asked about her marketing background. She talked about building community and authentic engagement through her Instagram following. She didn't mention campaigns, strategy, metrics, results. She mentioned her follower count like it was a credential. 200,000 followers. I had relationships with journalists who reached 200 million readers. I had campaigns that generated actual revenue. I had 8 years of measurable results. But I didn't have fresh energy. I had experience. And apparently experience was the problem. People were starting to clap again. Amber was smiling wider, holding up her phone, probably already planning what she'd post about this moment. Mark was nodding, looking relieved that the hard part was over. No one was looking at me anymore. I'd already been erased. I thought about standing up. Thought about walking out right then. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe shock. Maybe the small, stupid hope that this was a nightmare I'd wake up from. Then I saw him. In the back of the room, standing near the door. David. My husband. He'd come to watch. He was here for this. His eyes met mine for half a second. Then he looked away. And I understood. He wasn't here to support me. He was here to support her. But I needed to understand how I'd gotten here. How I'd missed every sign. How the life I'd carefully built had collapsed without me even noticing the cracks forming. This morning felt like it had happened in a different lifetime. I'd walked into CloudSync at 7:30 with my coffee and my laptop bag, the same way I had every morning for 8 years. The badge reader beeped green. Keisha waved from reception. Everything was normal. Except it wasn't. And I'd been too blind to see it. I'd noticed the small things over the past month, but I'd explained them away. Mark avoiding eye contact in meetings. Budget requests getting delayed. Younger employees I'd mentored suddenly going quiet when I entered rooms. My team acting nervous like they were walking on eggshells around me. I told myself it was normal startup growing pains. Companies changed as they scaled. Roles shifted. Dynamics evolved. I'd been through organizational changes before. This felt different, but I couldn't put my finger on why. That morning, I'd walked past the conference room where I'd pitched our first major client 5 years ago. Back then, we'd had 10 employees and furniture from IKEA. Now we had 3 floors and 200 people. I'd been part of every stage of that growth. I'd created the campaigns that attracted investors. I'd built the media relationships that got us featured in TechCrunch and Forbes. I'd designed the messaging that turned CloudSync from an unknown project management tool into a recognized industry player. The media wall in the main hallway displayed all of it. Framed press coverage, industry awards, conference badges from events where I'd represented the company. I'd walked past that wall every day feeling proud of what we'd built together. I didn't know Mark had already decided none of it mattered anymore. I'd stopped at Jordan's desk that morning. He was one of my best hires, a junior copywriter I'd taken a chance on 3 years ago when other companies wouldn't interview him. Now he led our entire content strategy. Morning, I'd said. Ready for the all-hands meeting? He'd looked up and his face had done something strange. Not quite guilt. Not quite fear. Something in between. Yeah. Should be interesting. Do you know what it's about? Mark didn't say. He'd looked back at his computer screen too quickly. I should have pushed. Should have asked why he looked so uncomfortable. But I'd been distracted thinking about the Q4 campaign proposal I needed to finalize, the client meeting scheduled for tomorrow, the dozen other tasks filling my calendar. I'd been so focused on doing my job that I didn't notice my job was already gone. Elena, my assistant, had been waiting at my office door when I arrived. She'd worked with me for 4 years. I knew her kids' names, her husband's job, her mother's health struggles. We'd celebrated promotions and survived crises together. He was more than an assistant. He was family. Morning, I'd said, unlocking my office. What's on the agenda today? She'd hesitated. Just for a second. The all-hands meeting at noon. Mark wants everyone there. Do you know what it's about? Another hesitation. He said it's important company news. I'd assumed it was the Series C funding announcement. We'd been working toward it for months. I'd created the entire investor deck, spent weeks perfecting every slide, every message, every data point. This felt like the natural celebration of that work. I'd been so stupid. At 11:30, I'd gathered my things and headed toward the main conference room. The hallway was crowded with people moving in the same direction, but nobody was talking. Usually before these meetings there was energy. Speculation about what Mark would announce. Jokes about how long he'd talk. Small conversations about weekend plans or project updates. That day, everyone walked in silence. And when I passed them, they looked away. I'd taken my usual seat, third row center, and pulled out my phone while waiting for the meeting to start. That's when I'd seen the notifications. 23 missed calls. 47 text messages. All from the past hour. Rachel Chin, the tech journalist I'd worked with for 5 years. Vanessa, what is happening? Is this real? Jennifer Wu, marketing director at a competing company. Call me. Something's wrong. Tim Rodriguez from our PR firm. We need to talk ASAP. My heart had started racing. I'd opened the next message. It was a screenshot. An Instagram post from someone named Amber Hayes, posted an hour ago. The photo showed a young woman standing in CloudSync's lobby, holding up her phone in a selfie. She was grinning, and the caption read, "New role alert. Chief Brand Officer at CloudSync. When you believe in yourself, the universe delivers." Chief Brand Officer. My role. My company. My lobby. And in the background of her photo, slightly out of focus, was me. Walking past. My face visible for just a moment, showing confusion and pain I hadn't even known I was feeling yet. She'd posted my humiliation before I'd even experienced it. Then Mark had walked in with Amber beside him, and my entire world had started falling apart in real time. The meeting wrapped up. Mark thanked everyone for their flexibility during this transition. People started standing, gathering their things, moving toward the catered lunch like nothing had happened. I sat completely still. Around me, my team was trying to figure out what to say. Elena touched my shoulder. "Vanessa." I stood up. My legs felt shaky but held. I walked to the front of the room where Amber was talking to Mark, laughing about something, completely comfortable in a space I'd built. "Congratulations," I said. My voice came out steady. Strong even. Amber turned, surprised. Up close, she looked even younger. Mid-20s maybe. Barely old enough to understand what a career really meant. "Oh, thank you." She extended her hand. I shook it. Her grip was weak. "I'm really excited to learn from everything you've built." Learn from everything I'd built. While taking everything I'd built. "I'm sure you'll do great," I said. The lie tasted like metal. Then I turned to Mark. "I'll get my things." I walked out of the conference room. Down the hallway. Past my office with my name still on the door. Past the wall of press coverage I'd earned. Past the break room where I'd stayed until midnight designing our original logo. The logo that was now plastered all over Amber's Instagram feed. Past Keisha at reception, who was crying quietly into her hands. I walked through the lobby, pushed open the glass doors, crossed the parking garage, got in my car. I started the engine. My hands were shaking. I drove 3 miles to a coffee shop I'd never been to before, parked in the back corner of the lot and turned off my phone. And sat in complete silence while my entire life dissolved around me. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The shock was too complete. I just sat there staring at the dashboard, trying to understand what had just happened. 8 years. 8 years of my life. Early mornings and late nights. Weekends spent perfecting campaigns. Holidays working on crisis management. Birthdays celebrated at my desk because launches couldn't wait. Family dinners cut short because clients needed responses. Date nights canceled because emergencies demanded attention. I'd given CloudSync everything. And they'd replaced me with an Instagram influencer who posted smoothie recipes and motivational quotes. Fresh energy. That's what Mark had said. We need fresh energy. I'd built the entire foundation. But foundations weren't exciting anymore. They wanted something shiny and new. They wanted someone who understood authentic connection, even if she didn't understand strategy, metrics, or results. They wanted someone young enough to make them feel innovative. And apparently, someone young enough to sleep with my husband was even better. After an hour, I finally turned my phone back on. The notifications exploded across my screen. 53 missed calls now. 72 text messages. Emails flooding in from journalists, colleagues, former clients, people I hadn't talked to in years. Everyone was asking the same question. What happened? I didn't have an answer yet. All I knew was that 1 hour ago, I'd had a career I'd spent 8 years building. A reputation I'd earned through measurable results. A team that depended on me. A company that wouldn't exist in its current form without my work. Now I had nothing. And somehow I'd been the last person to know it was coming. I turned my phone back on because I had to. Because sitting in silence wasn't solving anything. Because the questions flooding my mind needed answers I couldn't find alone in a parking lot. The screen lit up. 89 notifications now. The number kept climbing as I watched. I opened the first text from Rachel Chin, the tech journalist. I'm trying to verify this before I write anything. Can you call me? This doesn't make sense. Jennifer Wu had sent 3 messages. Where are you? Are you okay? I have screenshots of everything if you need them. Tim from the PR firm. CloudSync's board is going to hear about this. This is a disaster. I scrolled through message after message. Former colleagues expressing shock. Industry contacts asking if the Instagram post was real. A few people I barely knew offering sympathy that felt more like curiosity. Then I saw messages from my team. Jordan, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you. Priya, this isn't right. None of us agree with this. Elena, please let me know you're okay. They'd known. My own team had known I was being fired and they'd sat in meetings with me pretending everything was normal. They'd smiled at my jokes, accepted my feedback on their work. Let me believe I still had a future at the company I'd built. How long had they known? A week? 2 weeks? Had they talked about it amongst themselves, trying to decide if anyone should warn me? Or had they simply accepted it as inevitable the way you accept bad weather? My hands were shaking. I put the phone down on the passenger seat and pressed my palms against my eyes until I saw spots of light. The coffee shop in front of me was busy. Through the window I could see people ordering drinks, working on laptops, having normal conversations about normal problems. Their worlds were intact. Mine had just imploded and they had no idea someone was sitting 50 feet away trying to figure out how to breathe through the wreckage. I picked up my phone again. Opened Instagram. Searched for Amber Hayes. Her profile loaded. 201,000 followers now. She'd gained 1,000 since this morning. Her bio read, Lifestyle Creator Chief Brand Officer at CloudSync, Manifesting Abundance, DM for collabs. She'd already updated her bio. Already claimed the title. Already made my job part of her personal brand. I scrolled through her feed. Smoothie bowls arranged artfully with fresh berries. Workout selfies in expensive athleisure. Motivational quotes in white cursive font over images of sunsets and beaches. You are the CEO of your own life. Abundance flows to those who believe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Nothing about marketing strategy. Nothing about campaigns or metrics or actual business results. Just aesthetic photos and empty platitudes that somehow convinced Mark she was qualified to lead a marketing department. I kept scrolling. Then I found it. A post from 6 months ago. A photo of Amber at a restaurant, smiling at the camera. And in the background, slightly blurred but unmistakable, was David. My David. Sitting across from her, laughing at something she'd said. 6 months ago. They'd been together for at least 6 months and I'd had no idea. I zoomed in on the photo. David was wearing the shirt I'd bought him for his birthday. The one he'd claimed to love but rarely wore. He'd worn it for her. The caption on the photo, Best dinner conversations with the best company. Sometimes the universe puts exactly the right people in your path. 43 comments. All variations of so cute, and you deserve this, and manifesting this energy. Nobody questioned who the man in the background was. Nobody asked if he was married. They just celebrated her happiness while she destroyed mine. I clicked back to her most recent post. The one from this morning. The one announcing her new job at my company. The photo showed her in CloudSync's lobby, phone held high, grinning like she'd just won an award. And there I was in the background. Blurry but visible. My face showed everything. Confusion, hurt, the beginning of understanding that something terrible was happening. She'd captured my worst moment and turned it into her content. My humiliation was her engagement. The post had 4,200 likes now. 312 comments. I read through them, my stomach twisting tighter with each one. Congratulations, Queen. You manifested this. So proud of you. This is what happens when you stay in your power. Chief Brand Officer at your age? You're literally goals. A few comments were different. Wait, who's the woman in the back? This feels uncomfortable. Did someone just lose their job? But most people didn't care. They just saw a young woman celebrating success and they celebrated with her. They had no idea that success was built on sabotage, a fair and calculated destruction of someone else's career. One comment made me stop scrolling. It was from a username I didn't recognize. That's Vanessa Mitchell. She built CloudSync's entire brand. This is messed up. Someone knew. Someone in that sea of congratulations understood what was actually happening. I clicked on the username. The profile was private, but the bio said, Tech Marketing Professional. Seattle. Someone in my industry. Someone who knew my work. Someone who saw this for what it was. It was a small thing. One comment among hundreds. But it mattered. Because for the first time since walking out of that conference room, I felt like I wasn't completely alone. My phone rang. Mark calling. I stared at his name on the screen, feeling nothing but cold emptiness where anger should have been. I didn't answer. He called again immediately. Then a text. Vanessa, we need to discuss transition logistics. Please call me back. Transition logistics. He wanted to talk about how smoothly he could erase me. How quickly I could train my replacement. How professionally I could pretend this hadn't just destroyed everything I'd worked for. Another text came through. This one from HR. Hi Vanessa, we have your severance package ready for review. Can you come in tomorrow at 9 a.m. to discuss details? Severance package. Ready for review. They'd prepared everything before telling me. They'd had lawyers draft papers, HR calculate payments, Mark rehearse his speech, all while I sat in meetings thinking my job was secure. The betrayal wasn't just that they'd fired me. It was the premeditation. The planning. The careful choreography designed to make my removal look inevitable and mutual when it was neither. I thought about the past month. The strange signals I'd dismissed. Mark avoiding eye contact. Budget delays. Excluded meetings. My team acting nervous. HR's repeated rescheduling of our role evolution discussion. They'd been planning this the entire time. And I'd explained away every warning sign, too focused on doing my job to notice my job was already gone. Another call. David this time. I answered without thinking. What? Vanessa. His voice was careful, like he was talking to someone unstable. I heard what happened. Are you okay? You heard what happened. I laughed and it came out sharp and bitter. You heard. Like you weren't there. Like you didn't help make it happen. Silence on the other end. Then, I know you're upset. I saw you, David. In the back of the conference room. You came to watch. More silence. I thought it would be better if I was there. For support. Support. The word felt absurd. You were there to support her. Your girlfriend. The woman who just took my job. She's not my... He stopped. Caught in the lie. It's complicated. It's actually very simple. You've been sleeping with her for at least 6 months. You helped her get hired at my company. You orchestrated my professional destruction so you could what? Afford to leave me? Feel less guilty? I'm trying to understand the logic here. That's not what happened. Then explain it to me. Explain how your girlfriend ends up with my job, announced at a meeting you attended, posted on her Instagram before I even knew I was being fired. Explain the logic that makes any of this accidental. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I made mistakes. I know that. But this isn't all about you, Vanessa. You've been so focused on CloudSync for years that you stopped noticing anything else. Our marriage was already over. You just didn't see it. The accusation hit like a physical blow. He was making this my fault. My obsession with work. My failure to notice. My blindness to what was happening in my own life. And the worst part was, there was truth in it. I had been focused on CloudSync. I had missed signals. I had let my marriage deteriorate while I chased campaigns and press coverage and the validation that came from professional success. But I hadn't destroyed us. I hadn't lied. I hadn't betrayed. I hadn't systematically dismantled someone else's life to make room for mine. You're right, I said quietly. I didn't see it. I didn't see that my husband was capable of this level of cruelty. I didn't see that the person I'd been married to for 19 years would help destroy my career to cover up his affair. I missed a lot of things, David. But you made sure I would. Vanessa. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. I turned it off completely this time. Pulled the battery out so it couldn't turn back on. I sat in that parking lot for another hour watching people come and go from the coffee shop, living their normal lives while mine fell apart. Then I started the car and drove home. To the house David and I had bought together 12 years ago. To the place that was supposed to be safe but now felt like just another space I was about to lose. I needed to talk to Mia. I needed to figure out what she'd meant in her text. I needed to understand how much my daughter had known while I walked through my life completely oblivious to the disaster unfolding around me. Mia was sitting on the front steps when I pulled into the driveway. She shouldn't have been home. It was only 2:30 on a Wednesday. School didn't end until 3:15 and she usually stayed late for debate practice. But there she was, backpack slumped beside her, knees pulled to her chest, face buried in her arms. I turned off the engine and sat there for a moment watching her through the windshield. My 17-year-old daughter, who used to tell me everything, who used to run to me with every problem and triumph, now looked like she was carrying the weight of something too heavy for her shoulders. She looked up when she heard the car door close. Her eyes were red and swollen. Mascara tracked down her cheeks in dark smudges. She'd been crying for a while. "Mom," she said, and her voice cracked on the single word. I walked up the steps and sat down beside her. The concrete was cold through my slacks. "Why aren't you at school?" "I couldn't stay. After I saw." She stopped, fresh tears spilling over. "I'm so sorry. I should have told you." My chest tightened. "Told me what?" She wiped her face with her sleeve, smearing the mascara worse. "Can we go inside? Please?" We went into the house. The same house we'd lived in for 12 years. The same kitchen where we'd had 1,000 normal conversations. Everything looked exactly the same as it had this morning, but nothing felt the same. I made tea neither of us would drink. We sat at the kitchen table and Mia stared at her hands like she couldn't bear to look at me. "Mia, whatever it is, just tell me." She took a shaky breath. "Dad's been lying to you. About everything. And I knew. I've known for months and I didn't tell you and I hate myself for it." The words landed like physical blows, even though part of me already knew what was coming. "How long have you known?" "Since June. 6 months." Her voice was barely above a whisper. I found texts on his iPad. I was borrowing it for a school project and messages kept popping up. From someone named Amber. They were. She stopped, her face crumpling. "They were together, Mom. Like really together." The messages were. I can't even say what they said. June. 6 months ago. David and I had celebrated our anniversary in June. He'd taken me to dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. He'd held my hand across the table and told me he was grateful for our life together. And the entire time he'd been texting another woman. Planning a future that didn't include me. "You confronted him?" Mia nodded miserably. "The next day. I showed him what I'd found. I was so angry. I told him he had to tell you or I would." "What did he say?" "He begged me not to. He said it wasn't what it looked like, that he was ending it, that telling you would destroy our family. He made me promise to give him time to figure things out." Tears were streaming down her face now. "He said if I told you, it would be my fault if you guys got divorced. That you'd been through so much stress at work and this would break you. He made it sound like telling you would hurt you worse than keeping quiet." I felt something crack inside my chest. "Mia, listen to me. None of this is your fault. You were put in an impossible position. But I should have told you. I kept waiting for him to end it like he promised, but he never did. It just got worse. He was on the phone with her all the time. Late at night. In the garage. In his car. And I had to watch you trust him. Watch you believe him when he said he was working late or had client dinners. I felt like I was lying to you every single day. You were protecting yourself. That's what kids do when adults force them to keep secrets they shouldn't have to keep. But then today," her voice broke completely. "Today I saw it on Instagram. Her post. With you in the background looking so hurt. And I realized everyone was going to know and you didn't even know, and it was because I kept his secret." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You are not responsible for what your father did. Or what happened at my job today. Do you understand me?" She squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. "There's more. Something you need to hear." "More?" She pulled out her phone with her free hand, fingers shaking as she scrolled through her recordings. "Last Tuesday. Dad was in the garage on the phone. I don't even know why I recorded it. I just felt like I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That this was really happening." She pressed play. David's voice came through the speaker, clear and casual. "Mark owes me. I've sent him 3 major clients this year. He'll do this. Then a woman's voice I didn't recognize but knew had to be Amber. But what about Vanessa? Won't she be upset? David laughed. Actually laughed. Don't worry about her. Mark's already looking to make changes. He's been talking about bringing in younger leadership for months. I'm just giving him the solution he didn't know he needed. He'll get the title, the salary, everything. And when she finds out about us? She won't. Not until it doesn't matter anymore. By then you'll be established at CloudSync and we can deal with the fallout on our terms. This way we both get what we need. Amber's voice again, lighter now. You're terrible. I'm practical. I'm fixing two problems at once. You need a real job with real money. I need to be able to afford to leave without destroying myself financially. This solves both. The recording ended. 2 minutes and 17 seconds that explained everything. I sat there staring at Mia's phone, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. This wasn't an affair that accidentally intersected with my job. This was planned. Orchestrated. David had used his business connections to get Amber hired specifically so he could afford to leave me. He'd destroyed my career as part of his exit strategy. Mom. Mia's voice was small and scared. Say something. Please. Send me that recording. What? The recording. Send it to me right now. She did, her hands fumbling with her phone. My phone buzzed with the file. I saved it immediately, backed it up to 3 different places. Are you going to? Mia started then stopped. What are you going to do? I didn't answer because I didn't know yet. My mind was racing, connecting pieces I'd been too blind or too trusting to see before. David's company sent referrals to CloudSync. That's how tech sales worked. Everyone networked, everyone traded leads. But that networking created leverage. David had leverage over Mark. He'd used that leverage to get Amber hired. And I'd been so focused on my own work, so confident in my value to the company, that I'd never seen it coming. Mark hadn't just decided I was too old or too traditional. David had positioned me that way. Had probably spent months planting seeds with Mark about how the company needed fresh thinking and younger perspectives. Had made removing me seem like Mark's idea when it was David's plan all along. Mom, you're scaring me. I looked at my daughter. She looked so young suddenly. Too young to have carried this secret for 6 months. Too young to have been weaponized by her own father to keep his lies intact. I'm not mad at you, I said clearly. I need you to know that. You did nothing wrong. But I should have. No. You were 16 years old, and an adult you trusted manipulated you into keeping a secret that protected him and hurt me. That's not your fault. That's his. She started crying again, harder this time. I moved my chair next to hers and pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me the way she used to when she was little and had nightmares. I kept thinking he would stop, she sobbed into my shoulder. I kept thinking he'd realize what he was doing was wrong and he'd end it and tell you the truth and we could fix it. But he never did. He just kept lying. And lying. And lying. I know. I know. We sat there for a long time holding each other while everything we'd thought was solid crumbled around us. The house felt different now. It wasn't home anymore. It was just a building where lies had been told and betrayals had been planned. Eventually Mia pulled back, wiping her face. What happens now? I don't know yet. But we're going to figure it out together. Are you going to divorce him? The question was so direct, so practical, so Mia. Yes. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. Good. He doesn't deserve you. My phone started buzzing on the table. I'd turned it back on before leaving the parking lot, and now the notifications were flooding in again. 37 missed calls. 62 text messages. I picked it up and started scrolling. More messages from journalists. More from colleagues. Several from Mark, each one more urgent than the last. 3 from HR about scheduling my transition meeting. Then I saw one from Jennifer Wu. Call me now. Amber is posting videos of CloudSync's office and there's confidential information visible. This is a disaster. I opened Instagram. Searched Amber's profile. She'd posted 4 more times since the announcement this morning. The first was a getting ready for my first day video filmed in what looked like an expensive apartment. Designer clothes laid out on a white bed. Makeup products arranged on a marble counter. Her voice narrating, first day as chief brand officer. I still can't believe this is real. Manifesting really works, you guys. The second was a photo of her standing in CloudSync's lobby, same location as this morning's post, but this time giving a peace sign. Caption: walking into my new office like I own the place. Because I kind of do. The third was what Jennifer had warned me about. A video tour of the office. Amber walking through CloudSync's floors, narrating cheerfully about the amazing space and incredible energy. But she didn't know what she was filming. Didn't know or didn't care. She panned across a conference room where our product development team had left documents on the whiteboard. Documents marked internal only, showing our Q4 product roadmap. Features we hadn't announced yet. Release dates. Pricing strategies. Everything our competitors would love to know. She filmed herself sitting at a desk, my old desk, and behind her, clearly visible on the credenza, was a printed presentation deck. I zoomed in on my phone, squinting at the screen. It was the Q4 investor pitch. The one Mark was presenting to potential Series C investors next week. Customer acquisition costs were visible. Revenue projections. Competitive analysis showing our weaknesses. Amber had just leaked confidential company information to 201,000 followers and had no idea she'd done it. The fourth post was a photo of her holding a CloudSync branded coffee mug. Caption: obsessed with my new company swag. This is just the beginning. Comments were rolling in. Thousands of them. Most were congratulatory. But some were different now. Is that internal company info in the background? Did she just leak product plans? Someone's getting fired for this. This is so unprofessional. I took screenshots of everything. Every post. Every comment. Every frame of video showing confidential information. Then I texted Jennifer. I have screenshots. And I have something else. Something about how she got hired. Can you meet tomorrow? Her response came immediately. Yes. My office. 9 a.m. Bring everything. I looked at Mia, who was watching me with red, swollen eyes. We're going to be okay. I promise. How do you know? Because I spent 8 years building something real. Your father and Amber destroyed it in one day. But they didn't destroy me. They just showed me exactly who they are. And for the first time since walking out of that conference room, I felt something other than shock and pain. I felt clarity. Cold, sharp, and absolutely certain. That night, after Mia went to her room, I sat alone at the kitchen table with my laptop and started digging into my own life. The house was too quiet. Usually David would be home by now, making noise in the kitchen, watching television in the living room, existing in the space we'd shared for 12 years. Tonight he wasn't here. I didn't know where he was and I didn't care. I opened our joint bank account. Something I hadn't checked carefully in months, maybe longer. David handled most of the day-to-day finances. I made more money. My salary at CloudSync had been $140,000. But he paid the bills, managed the accounts, kept track of expenses. I trusted him with that. I trusted him with everything. I started scrolling through statements from the past year. Restaurant charges I didn't recognize. Places in Seattle I'd never been to. Angelo's Italian Bistro, $187. The Oceanfront Grill, $243. Castaway Bar and Lounge, $156. All charged to our shared credit card. All dinners I hadn't eaten. Then I found a recurring charge. $2,800 every month for the past 7 months. The description said Premium Storage Solutions Unit Rental. We didn't have a storage unit. We talked about getting one when we cleaned out the garage last spring, but we'd never followed through. I clicked on the charge, tried to find more details. The payment went to a company called Premium Storage Solutions, but when I searched for them online, nothing came up. No website. No business listing. Nothing. I kept digging. Cash withdrawals. Large ones. $500 here. $800 there. Always on Thursdays. Always from the ATM near David's office. 12 withdrawals over the past 6 months, totaling more than $7,000. My hands were shaking now. I opened another tab and logged into our home equity line of credit. The account we'd set up 3 years ago for emergencies and home improvements. The account that was supposed to have $50,000 available. The balance showed $3,200 remaining. We'd drawn down $46,800. I stared at the number, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. I'd never authorized any draws on that account. I'd never signed anything. David must have forged my signature or used our joint access to pull money without telling me. Our home equity. The financial cushion I'd built. Mia's backup college fund. My security. Gone. I clicked through the transaction history. The first draw was 18 months ago. $5,000. Then another 2 months later. $8,000. Then more. And more. The amounts got larger as time went on. The most recent draw was 3 weeks ago. $6,500. Where had all that money gone? I opened David's email. I knew his password. He'd never changed it from our anniversary year, and I'd never had a reason to snoop before. I felt a brief flash of guilt about invading his privacy, then remembered he'd just destroyed my career and my marriage, and the guilt disappeared. I searched payment in his inbox. Hundreds of results came up. I started clicking through them. Receipts from something called PokerNow Elite. An online gambling site. Small amounts at first. $50 here. $100 there. Then larger. $500. $1,000. $2,500. He'd lost $31,000 over the past 2 years playing online poker. Then I found emails from someone named Marcus Chin. Subject lines like payment schedule, and we need to discuss your balance, and final notice action required. I opened them. My stomach dropped further with each one. Marcus was calling in David's gambling debts. The tone started professional but got progressively more threatening. I've been patient, but I need payment by end of month. Interest is accumulating daily. This will affect your professional reputation if not resolved soon. David owed someone named Marcus Chin $47,000. I kept searching. Found emails between David and Amber. Not the romantic ones Mia had seen. Financial ones. Venmo receipts. David sending Amber $2,800 every month since March. 7 months of payments totaling $19,600. The same amount as our storage unit charges. He'd been paying her rent. With our money. While planning to get her hired at my company. There were other payments too. Furniture for her apartment. A car repair. Her phone bill. Parking tickets. David had been funding her entire life with money from our home equity line while systematically destroying my career. I sat back from the laptop feeling sick. The scope of the deception was staggering. This wasn't just an affair. It was financial fraud. It was theft. It was calculated and sustained and completely deliberate. Then I found something that made everything worse. An email from 3 months ago. Marcus Chin to David. Subject line, proposal. I opened it. David, I have a solution that benefits both of us. I've been consulting with tech startups for the past few years, helping them optimize growth strategies. CloudSync is exactly the kind of company I'm targeting for my next engagement. If you can get Mark to meet with me and consider bringing me on as an advisor, I'll reduce your debt by $15,000. I need a foothold in a solid Series B company. CloudSync is perfect. Let me know if you can make this happen. David's response. I can make that happen. I have leverage with Mark through client referrals. Let me work on it. Another email 2 months later. Marcus, how's it going with the CloudSync connection? David, better than expected. Mark is concerned about marketing effectiveness. I've been planting seeds about needing younger leadership with social media expertise. I think I can get Amber hired there, which would position you perfectly. Once she's established, you come in as a growth consultant. Mark will trust the recommendation because it comes through internal channels. Marcus, and Amber is on board? David, she doesn't need to know the full picture. She just knows I'm helping her get a job that pays well. Once she's in, you make your move. My debt gets cleared, you get your consulting gig, everyone wins. Marcus, except your wife. David, my wife will be fine. She's talented. She'll land somewhere else. And honestly, our marriage has been over for a while. This just accelerates the inevitable. I read the emails 3 times. Then I read them again. Each time they got worse. Marcus Chin wasn't just a debt collector. He was running some kind of corporate infiltration scheme. He got people into debt, then leveraged that debt to get access to companies. David wasn't just cheating on me and destroying my career. He was helping a con artist infiltrate CloudSync. I searched Marcus Chin online. His LinkedIn profile listed him as an independent business consultant specializing in growth strategy and operational optimization for emerging tech companies. I dug deeper. Found a Reddit thread from 2 years ago. A startup founder warning others about a consultant who'd extracted proprietary information and then disappeared before the company collapsed. The consultant's name wasn't mentioned, but the description matched. Another article from a tech blog about a startup that suffered a data breach and was acquired at a fire sale price shortly after bringing on a mysterious growth advisor. No names, but the timeline matched Marcus's LinkedIn employment history. He was a corporate saboteur. He infiltrated companies, extracted valuable information, then either sold it to competitors or positioned himself for acquisition payouts. And David had just helped him get access to CloudSync. Amber was the entry point. Too naive or too self-absorbed to realize she was being used. David was the facilitator, trading my career and his integrity to clear his gambling debts. And I was the obstacle who'd been surgically removed to make the whole scheme work. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark kitchen, my mind working through everything I'd discovered. David hadn't just betrayed me personally. He'd committed fraud against our family finances. He'd enabled corporate espionage. He'd destroyed my career not because he'd fallen in love with someone else, but because he needed me gone to make his schemes work. Mark had been so desperate for his Series C funding, so convinced that younger leadership would attract investors, that he'd never questioned why David was suddenly so interested in CloudSync's hiring practices. They'd all used each other. David used Mark's desperation. Marcus used David's debt. Amber used her relationship with David. And I was the one who paid the price for all of it. My phone buzzed. A text from David: "We need to talk. I'm staying at a hotel tonight, but we should meet tomorrow." I stared at his message. He thought he could control the narrative. Thought he could explain this away, make it sound reasonable, position himself as the victim of circumstance rather than the architect of destruction. He had no idea what I knew. What I'd found. What Mia had given me. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a new document on my laptop and started organizing everything. Bank statements showing the drained home equity line. Receipts showing payments to Amber. Emails showing the Marcus Chin scheme. Screenshots of Amber's Instagram posts leaking confidential information. Mia's recording of David discussing the plan. I created folders. Made copies. Backed everything up to 3 different cloud storage accounts. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with all this information yet. But I knew I needed it protected. I knew I needed leverage. Because the only thing worse than being destroyed is being destroyed and having no way to prove what happened. Around midnight, I finally stood up from the table. My back ached from sitting so long. My eyes burned from staring at screens. My head throbbed with information overload. I walked upstairs and checked on Mia. She was asleep, finally, her face still puffy from crying. I stood in her doorway for a long moment, watching her breathe, feeling rage on her behalf that her father had weaponized her love and loyalty against both of us. Then I went to my own bedroom. The bedroom I'd shared with David for 12 years. I looked at his side of the bed, his nightstand, his dresser with his clothes still in it, and felt absolutely nothing. Not anger. Not grief. Not even hatred. Just a cold, clear certainty that I was done being the person things happened to. Starting tomorrow, I was going to be the person who made things happen. I woke up at 5 a.m. Thursday morning with absolute clarity about what I needed to do. The rage from last night had crystallized into something more useful. Something strategic. I'd spent years building marketing campaigns, understanding audience psychology, knowing exactly how to position information for maximum impact. Those skills didn't disappear just because I'd lost my job. I made coffee and opened my laptop at the kitchen table before the sun came up. Started making a list of everyone I needed to contact. Not to complain. Not to vent. But to carefully, deliberately rebuild my professional foundation while documenting everything that had happened. First call went to Rachel Chin, the tech journalist. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert despite the early hour. "Vanessa, I've been hoping you'd call. Are you okay?" "I'm fine. I need to give you a statement before you write anything." "Of course. Go ahead." I kept my voice steady, professional. "I'm grateful for my 8 years at CloudSync and proud of what we built together. The company is evolving and I'm confident in their direction moving forward. I'm excited to explore new opportunities in fractional marketing leadership and consulting. Silence on the other end. Then, that's very diplomatic. But off the record, what actually happened? Off the record, I was replaced by someone with no marketing experience who's currently leaking confidential company information on Instagram. But on the record, I'm taking the high road. Rachel laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I saw those posts. Half the tech community is talking about them. The girlfriend angle is making it worse. I'm not commenting on that. Smart. For what it's worth, everyone I've talked to thinks CloudSync made a massive mistake. Mistakes have consequences. I'm just making sure I'm not around when those consequences hit. After we hung up, I called Jennifer Wu. She picked up immediately. Finally. I've been worried sick. Are you coming in this morning? Yes. 9 o'clock, your office. I have everything you asked for. Good. Bring the screenshots, bring the recording, bring whatever else you found. We need to talk strategy. Next, I updated my LinkedIn profile. Changed my headline to Marketing Leader Available for Fractional CMO Engagements, specializing in brand strategy and growth marketing. I didn't mention CloudSync in the headline. Didn't need to. My entire profile showed 8 years of results. Press coverage. Campaign metrics. Boards. Client testimonials. The work spoke for itself. I posted a brief update. After 8 years of building CloudSync's brand from the ground up, I'm excited to start a new chapter focusing on fractional CMO work. Looking forward to helping multiple companies benefit from strategic marketing leadership. Open to conversations with organizations that value experience and measurable results. Professional. Positive. No bitterness. No drama. Within an hour, I had responses. Former colleagues commenting with supportive messages. Recruiters reaching out via DM. 3 companies I'd worked with as a vendor asking if I was available for consulting projects. By 7 a.m. I had 4 meetings scheduled for next week. All consulting opportunities. All paid. None of them requiring me to sit in an office and pretend to respect people who'd betrayed me. Mia came downstairs around 7:30, eyes still puffy but her face set with determination. She'd showered and dressed for school, but I could see the weight she was still carrying. Mom? Are you okay? I'm better than okay. I'm taking control. She sat down across from me at the table. What does that mean? It means I spent 8 years building something valuable. That value doesn't disappear just because one company was too short-sighted to see it. I'm going to keep doing what I'm good at, just on my own terms now. And Dad, your father made choices. He's going to live with the consequences of those choices. Are you going to use the recording? The one I gave you. I looked at my daughter. She was 17, but she'd been forced to grow up too fast over the past 6 months. I don't know yet, but having it gives me options. Sometimes the threat of exposure is more powerful than actual exposure. She nodded slowly. I'm proud of you. For not falling apart. Oh, I fell apart. You just didn't see all of it. The difference is I didn't stay there. After Mia left for school, I continued working. I created a folder on my laptop labeled Documentation and organized everything I'd discovered. Bank statements showing the drained home equity line. Screenshots of David's emails with Marcus Chin. Receipts showing payments to Amber. The Instagram posts showing leaked confidential information. Mia's audio recording. I made 3 copies. 1 on my laptop. 1 on an external hard drive. 1 in cloud storage that required 2-factor authentication to access. Then I printed physical copies of everything and stored them in a locked filing cabinet in my home office. The office David never entered because he claimed my work stuff was too boring. Around 8:30, I drove to Jennifer Wu's office across town. She worked at TechVision, one of CloudSync's main competitors. We'd been friends for 6 years, meeting at industry conferences and staying in touch through occasional coffee meetings and professional advice exchanges. Her office was in a modern building in South Lake Union. Glass walls, open floor plan, the kind of workspace that screamed, "We're innovative," while actually being fairly standard for Seattle tech companies. Jennifer was waiting in a small conference room with coffee and bagels she knew I wouldn't eat. She took one look at my face and hugged me hard. "I'm so angry for you," she said. "This is beyond unprofessional. It's sabotage." I sat down and pulled out my laptop. "It's worse than sabotage. It's a coordinated scheme involving gambling debts, corporate infiltration and fraud. Her eyes widened as I walked her through everything. The Marcus Chin emails. The drained home equity line. David's gambling debts. The plan to get Marcus positioned as an advisor at CloudSync. This is insane, she said when I finished. This is like corporate espionage movie plot insane. It's real. And CloudSync has no idea what's coming. Are you going to warn them? I hesitated. This was the question I'd been wrestling with all morning. I don't know. Part of me wants to watch them burn for what they did. But another part remembers that there are good people there. People I hired. People I trained. They don't deserve to be collateral damage in Marcus's scheme. What does your lawyer say? I don't have a lawyer yet. That's this afternoon's project. Jennifer pulled out her phone. I'm texting you the name of the lawyer I used for my divorce. She's sharp, she's tough, and she doesn't mess around. Tell her I sent you. Thank you. Now, let's talk about work. Real work. Are you serious about fractional CMO consulting? Completely serious. I need income, I need flexibility, and I need to not be dependent on any one company ever again. Jennifer smiled. Good. Because I have 3 companies that need exactly what you offer. They're all Series A or Series B startups. They need strategic marketing leadership but can't afford or don't want a full-time executive. You'd work maybe 15 to 20 hours a week per company. Set your own schedule. Charge consulting rates instead of salary. What's the pay? For 3 companies at 20 hours each? You'd clear $180,000 annually. More than your CloudSync salary. And you'd have autonomy they could never give you. I sat back in my chair processing this. That's actually perfect. I know. I've been doing it for 2 years. It's the best decision I ever made. No office politics. No organizational drama. Just strategy, execution, results. You do good work, they refer you to others, your reputation grows. Can you introduce me? Already sent emails this morning. All 3 companies want to meet with you next week. For the first time in 2 days I felt something like hope. Not the naive hope of thinking everything would magically fix itself. But the realistic hope that came from having a concrete plan and the skills to execute it. Jennifer leaned forward. Now, about CloudSync. What are you going to do? I'm going to wait. Let Amber keep posting. Let Marcus make his moves. Let Mark realize he's made a catastrophic mistake. And when they finally panic and ask for help, I'll decide if they deserve it. That's cold. They earned it. We talked for another hour about logistics, rates, contract structures, how to position myself in the market. Jennifer had been through this transition herself and knew every pitfall to avoid. When I left her office around 11, I felt steadier than I had since walking out of that conference room. I had a plan. I had options. I had people who valued my expertise. I drove to a law office downtown and met with Amanda Pierce, the divorce attorney Jennifer recommended. She was in her 50s. Gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, eyes sharp and assessing. I spent 90 minutes walking her through everything. The affair. The financial fraud. The drained home equity. The gambling debts. Mia's recording. The scheme with Marcus Chin. Amanda took notes the entire time, her expression getting darker as the story unfolded. This is one of the more complicated cases I've seen, she said when I finished. But you've documented everything beautifully. That's going to make my job much easier. What happens now? Now we file. Immediately. We freeze the joint account so he can't drain anything else. We file for divorce citing fraud and financial misconduct. We position you as the victim of deliberate deception, not a failed marriage. And we make sure he doesn't get to rewrite this story as a mutual parting of ways. How long does this take? In Washington, 90 days minimum. Realistically, 6 months to a year given the complexity. But we file immediately to establish timeline and intent. I signed the retainer agreement. Transferred money from my personal savings account that David didn't have access to. Walked out of that office with paperwork that would legally end my marriage. It should have felt more significant. More emotional. Instead, it just felt like checking off another task on a very long list. My phone rang as I was driving home. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Vanessa Mitchell? Yes. This is Linda Carson. I don't know if you remember me, but I was your boss at TechCorp about 12 years ago. I did remember. Linda had been an excellent manager before I left for CloudSync. Of course I remember. How are you? I'm well. I saw your LinkedIn update this morning. I wanted to reach out because I think we should talk. About the fact that what happened to you happens to women in tech constantly. And about how there's a network of us who've decided to do something about it. Linda Carson wanted to meet in person. She suggested a coffee shop in Fremont, neutral territory away from both our offices, though I didn't have an office anymore. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered coffee I didn't drink, and sat by the window watching people pass by on the sidewalk. Normal people living normal lives. Going to jobs where they felt secure. Coming home to partners who hadn't destroyed them. Linda walked in at exactly 2 o'clock. She looked the same as I remembered. Sharp gray suit, confident stride, the kind of presence that made junior employees straighten their posture. But her expression was softer than it used to be. Less corporate armor, more genuine warmth. Vanessa. She hugged me before sitting down. You look good. Tired but good. I'm surviving. You're doing more than surviving. I've been watching your LinkedIn activity. 4 consulting meetings scheduled already. That's not survival. That's strategy. I managed a small smile. Old habits. Linda pulled out her laptop and opened it between us. I want to show you something. It's a network I've been building for the past 3 years. Women in tech, mostly over 40, all of whom have been pushed out of companies they helped build. We call ourselves the Collective. She turned the screen toward me. It showed a private website with profiles of about 20 women. Marketing directors, CTOs, operations managers, product leads. All with impressive credentials. All marked as available for fractional executive work. We're not a formal company, Linda explained. We're a referral network. When a startup or established company needs executive-level expertise but can't afford or doesn't want a full-time hire, they come to us. We match them with the right person. Everyone sets their own rates, their own hours, their own terms. How does it work financially? You contract directly with the client. We just facilitate the introduction. No placement fees, no commission. The only requirement is that if you get work through the Collective, you refer other opportunities back to the network when you can. I scrolled through the profiles. Every woman had a story similar to mine written between the lines of their professional accomplishments. Decades of experience. Proven results. Suddenly deemed not the right fit for companies they'd built. Why are you telling me this? Linda closed the laptop. Because what happened to you is going to keep happening unless we create alternative structures. The tech industry is addicted to youth. They think innovation requires inexperience. They're wrong, but they won't figure that out until they've burned through enough talented people. In the meantime, we need to survive. This is how we survive. The 3 companies you mentioned. They're through this network. Yes. All startups between Series A and Series C. All need strategic marketing leadership. All specifically asked for someone with real experience because they've already tried the fresh energy approach and it didn't work. Something loosened in my chest. When can I start? Next week. I'll send you the contracts this afternoon. But Vanessa. Linda's expression turned serious. You need to know that doing this work well requires letting go of what happened at CloudSync. Not forgetting. Not forgiving. But letting go enough that you can focus on building something new instead of dwelling on what you lost. I'm not dwelling. You're documenting everything. Jennifer told me. Linda held up her hand before I could protest. I'm not saying it's wrong. I did the same thing when I got pushed out of my VP role 8 years ago. I had folders full of evidence, emails, proof of my value. You know what I did with it? What? Nothing. Because I realized the evidence didn't matter. They didn't fire me because I was incompetent. They fired me because keeping me around made them feel old. No amount of proof was going to change that. So I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who'd already decided I didn't have any, and I started proving it to people who were actually looking. Her words hit harder than I expected. Because she was right. I'd been so focused on documenting David's betrayal, Amber's incompetence, Marcus's scheme, that I'd barely started actually rebuilding. What happened to the evidence? The folders. Linda smiled. Still have them. Backed up in 3 places. Because sometimes knowing you have leverage is enough. You don't have to use it. You just have to know it's there if you need it. We talked for another hour about the collective, about fractional work, about how to position myself in the market. Linda had been through exactly what I was experiencing. She understood the specific pain of being erased by people you trusted. When we finally stood to leave, she handed me her business card. Call me if you need anything. And Vanessa, you're going to be fine. Better than fine. This is going to be the best professional decision you never wanted to make. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Not happiness exactly. Not relief. But possibility. The sense that there was a path forward that didn't require me to destroy anyone or prove anything. I could just build something new. Mia was home when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. She looked up when I walked in. Mom, Dad's been calling. I know. I've been ignoring him. He wants to talk. He keeps saying you're being unreasonable. I set my bag down and sat across from her. What do you think? Am I being unreasonable? She considered the question seriously. I think you're being smart. He wants to control the narrative. If you talk to him, he'll try to make this all sound reasonable. Like he had no choice. Like you share the blame somehow. When did you get so wise? When I spent 6 months watching an adult lie to everyone and realizing I never want to be that person. She paused. Are you going to talk to him eventually? Eventually. When I'm ready. When I have all my pieces in place. What pieces? I thought about the divorce papers Amanda was filing. The consulting contracts Linda was sending. The documentation folder on my laptop with evidence of everything David had done. The network of women who understood exactly what I was going through. The pieces that mean I'm walking into that conversation from a position of strength, not desperation. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Tim from CloudSync's PR firm. We have a situation. Can you call me? It's urgent. I showed Mia the text. What do you think this is about? Amber probably did something else stupid. Called Tim. He answered on the first ring, his voice strained. Vanessa. Thank God. We need your help. With what? Amber posted another video. This one's worse. She filmed a strategy session where Mark was discussing the Series C pitch. The entire financial model is visible on the screen behind her. Plus customer churn data. Plus competitive weaknesses. It's been live for 3 hours and has 50,000 views. I closed my eyes. And you're calling me why? Because Mark is panicking. The board is furious. Our lead investor saw the video and is threatening to pull out of Series C discussions. We need crisis management, and you're the only person who knows how to handle this. I don't work there anymore, Tim. I know. But we need you. Mark wants to hire you back as a consultant. Emergency rates. Whatever you want. I looked at Mia, who was watching me with wide eyes. Tell Mark I'll think about it. I'll have an answer for him Monday. Monday. Vanessa, this is happening now. Monday, Tim. That's the best I can do. I hung up. Mia was staring at me. You're going to help them? After everything? I don't know yet. I need to think about whether they deserve help or whether they deserve to learn this lesson the hard way. Another text came through. This one from Jennifer. Did you see Amber's latest video? Half of tech Twitter is talking about it. CloudSync's reputation is tanking in real time. Then another from Rachel Chin. I'm writing an article about the dangers of hiring for culture fit over competence. Can I quote you? Then one from Elena, my former assistant. Please come back. Everything is falling apart. Amber doesn't know what she's doing and Mark won't admit he made a mistake. We need you. I set my phone face down on the table. This is what Linda meant about letting go. I could spend the next month watching CloudSync implode and feeling vindicated. Or I could spend it building something new. Can't you do both? I laughed despite everything. Maybe. But one of those paths leads somewhere I want to be. The other just leads to more anger. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and reviewed the consulting contracts Linda had sent. 3 companies, 60 hours a week total. $180,000 for 6 months with possibility of extension. Real work solving real problems for people who actually wanted my expertise. I signed all 3 contracts. Sent them back. Scheduled my first meetings for Monday and Tuesday. Then I opened the folder labeled documentation and looked at everything I'd collected. Bank statements. Emails. Screenshots. Audio recordings. Proof of David's betrayal and Marcus's scheme and Amber's incompetence. Linda was right. Having the evidence mattered. But using it had to be a strategic choice, not an emotional reaction. I made a decision. I would help CloudSync, but not because they deserved it. I would help them because there were good people there who didn't deserve to lose their jobs because of Mark's bad judgment. People like Elena and Jordan and Priya who'd been caught in the middle of something they hadn't created. But I would help them on my terms. At my rates. For a limited time. And I would make sure everyone knew exactly what my expertise was worth. I texted Tim back. I'll consult for CloudSync for 2 weeks maximum. $500 per hour, 20-hour minimum commitment, payment upfront. I solve the immediate crisis and train someone to handle ongoing issues. Then I'm done. If Mark agrees to these terms, have him email me directly. Tim's response came immediately. He'll agree. Thank you. I set my phone down and looked at the contracts I'd just signed. At the documentation folder I'd carefully built. At the path forward I was choosing. Maybe this wasn't revenge. Maybe it was something better. Maybe it was reclaiming my value on my own terms and refusing to let anyone else define my worth ever again. Mark's email arrived at 6 a.m. Monday morning, 3 weeks after I'd signed my consulting contracts with Linda's network. Terms accepted. Wire transfer confirmation attached. Can you start today? Situation is critical. I was already awake, working on a campaign strategy for one of my new clients. A healthcare software startup that actually valued experience over Instagram followers. I opened the attachment. $10,000 deposited into my business account. 20 hours at $500 per hour, payment upfront, exactly as I'd demanded. I finished my coffee and replied, I'll be there at 10 a.m. Have your PR firm, security team, and customer success lead available for meetings. No pleasantries. No acknowledgement of our history. Just business. I spent the next 3 hours working on my other clients' projects, then drove to CloudSync's office for the first time since walking out of that conference room. The badge reader still recognized my credentials. Security had never deactivated them. I walked through the lobby where Amber had posted her selfie, past Keisha's desk where she looked up with red eyes and mouthed thank you, down the hallway toward the conference rooms. Not my old office. I'd made that clear. I was a consultant now, not an employee. I worked in neutral territory. Mark was waiting in conference room B with Tim from the PR firm and 2 people I didn't recognize. A woman in her 30s who introduced herself as the new head of security, and a man about my age who was apparently the customer success director. Mark looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 weeks. Dark circles under his eyes. Tie loosened. The confident CEO energy completely gone. Vanessa. Thank you for coming. He extended his hand. I didn't shake it. Just set my laptop on the table and sat down. Let's talk about the damage. The security director pulled up a presentation. The data breach had exposed information from approximately 3,000 customer accounts. Not passwords or payment information, thankfully, but company data, user activity logs, and internal project details. Customers were furious. 3 major clients had already canceled contracts. The Series C investors had put discussions on hold indefinitely. How did this happen? I asked, though I already knew. The security director glanced at Mark, who nodded reluctantly. Product roadmap information was leaked through a social media post. The post showed our development timeline, including security vulnerabilities we were planning to patch in our next release. Someone exploited those vulnerabilities before we could fix them. Amber's Instagram video. Awkward silence. Then Mark said quietly, yes. Where is she now? Gone. We terminated her employment the day the breach was discovered. And no one thought to monitor what she was posting? No one reviewed her content before she leaked confidential information to 200,000 followers. More silence. Finally, Tim spoke. We assumed she understood basic confidentiality protocols. We were wrong. I wanted to say, I told you so. I wanted to list every warning sign they'd ignored, every red flag they'd dismissed because Amber had fresh energy, and I was too traditional. But that wouldn't solve their current crisis. What do you need from me? Mark leaned forward. Crisis management. Media strategy. Customer retention messaging. We need to rebuild trust, and we need to do it fast. I spent the next 6 hours drafting statements, coaching Mark for media interviews, creating a customer communication plan, and developing a roadmap for rebuilding their reputation. The work was familiar. I'd done crisis management before. But this time felt different because I had no emotional investment in the outcome. I was solving a puzzle, not saving something I'd built. Around 4 p.m., while reviewing system access logs with the security director, I found something interesting. "Who's Marcus Chin?" She pulled up the file. "External consultant. He was here briefly as a growth advisor." "Why? When was he here?" "Started the same day as AM, the former chief brand officer. Left 3 weeks later, right before the breach went public." I looked at the access logs. Marcus had been granted system permissions that gave him access to financial projections, customer data, and internal strategy documents. Things a growth advisor might legitimately need to see. Except he'd downloaded all of it 2 days before the breach was announced. Who approved his access? She scrolled through the authorization records. The chief brand officer granted initial access. Then it was extended by... She paused. By Mark. I looked at Mark across the conference room. He was on the phone with an investor, his voice strained, promising the situation was under control. He had no idea what had actually happened. He thought this was about Amber's social media incompetence. He didn't know about David's gambling debts, Marcus's scheme, the deliberate infiltration of his company by someone who'd done this before. I could tell him. I could explain that this wasn't just a hiring mistake, it was corporate sabotage. I could show him the emails I'd found on David's laptop, the pattern of Marcus's previous jobs ending in data breaches and fire sale acquisitions. Or I could finish my contract, collect my payment, and let him figure it out on his own. I made my decision. I walked over to where Mark was sitting. He ended his call when he saw my expression. "We need to talk. Privately." We went into a smaller conference room. I closed the door. "Marcus Chin. Tell me about him." Mark looked confused. "Growth consultant. David referred him." "Why?" "David referred him." "Yes. David's company has worked with Marcus before. He vouched for his credentials." I pulled out my phone and showed Mark the email I'd screenshotted from David's laptop. The one where Marcus offered to reduce David's gambling debt in exchange for access to CloudSync. The one where David agreed to position Amber as the entry point. Mark's face went white as he read. David orchestrated this. David was desperate. Marcus exploited that desperation. Amber was the naive entry point. And you were too focused on appearing innovative to see what was actually happening. How long have you known about this? 3 weeks. And you didn't tell us? I met his eyes directly. You fired me. You replaced me with someone who had 0 qualifications because she made you feel young and relevant. You humiliated me in front of 200 people. Why exactly would I rush to save you? Mark slumped in his chair. You're right. I made a terrible decision. I let David and the board pressure me into thinking we needed younger leadership. I convinced myself that experience was less valuable than energy. I was wrong. Yes. You were. Is Marcus still accessing our systems? No. He got what he came for and disappeared. But you need to investigate whether he sold your data to competitors. And you need to figure out if he's done this to other companies. Mark rubbed his face. What do I do? You hire a forensic security firm to trace what Marcus accessed and where it went. You notify your legal team about potential corporate espionage. You prepare for the possibility that your competitors now have information they shouldn't have. And you pray your insurance covers some of this. Will you stay and help with that? No. My contract is for crisis communications, not corporate investigations. I've done what you paid me for. The rest is your problem. I stood to leave. Mark stood too. Vanessa. I know this doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how I handled your departure. I'm sorry for not trusting the person who'd actually built this company. You deserved better. The apology landed flat. Not because it wasn't sincere, but because it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. CloudSync would survive this, probably. They'd implement better security, hire people who actually knew what they were doing, learn expensive lessons about valuing substance over style. But I wouldn't be there to see it. And I didn't care. Goodbye, Mark. I walked out of CloudSync for the second time, but this time I wasn't devastated. I was done. Finished. released from any remaining emotional attachment to a place that had decided I didn't matter. I got in my car and drove home to my apartment, stopping to pick up dinner from the Thai place Mia and I both loved. When I walked in, Mia was on the couch doing homework. She looked up. How was it? Satisfying. And empty. Both at the same time. She closed her textbook. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. I'm free. That night, after Mia went to bed, I was working on my laptop when someone knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw David standing there, looking worse than I'd ever seen him. I considered not answering. Considered letting him stand there until he gave up and left. But I wanted this conversation. Needed it, actually. The final punctuation mark on a marriage that had died long before either of us admitted it. I opened the door. What do you want? Can we talk? Please. I stepped aside and let him in, but I didn't offer him a seat. We stood in my small living room facing each other like strangers. I lost my job, he said. My company found out I shared client information to help get Amber hired. They fired me for breach of ethics. That's unfortunate. Amber's gone. She broke up with me the same day she got fired from CloudSync. Blocked my number. Moved back to California. Won't return my calls. Also unfortunate. Marcus is threatening me again. The debt's still there. He got what he wanted from CloudSync and now he wants the rest of his money. I don't have it. I don't have anything. I looked at the man I'd been married to for 19 years. The man who'd destroyed my career to fund his girlfriend. The man who'd lied to our daughter and weaponized her love. The man who'd stood in the back of that conference room and watched me get humiliated. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not pity. Just profound indifference. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm sorry. I made terrible choices. I was desperate and stupid and I hurt everyone who mattered. But we've been together 19 years, Vanessa. That has to mean something. It does mean something. It means I wasted 19 years trusting someone who was willing to destroy me to solve his own problems. That's not fair. You were so focused on your career. Don't. I cut him off. Don't you dare make this about my work. You didn't destroy my career because I was too focused on CloudSync. You destroyed it because you needed me out of the way. There's a difference. I walked to my desk and pulled out an envelope. The divorce papers Amanda had prepared. Sign these. I'm keeping the house. You're taking your debt. I'm done. David stared at the papers. You're serious. Completely serious. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can. David. You helped a con artist infiltrate my company. You traded my career for your girlfriend's job. You drained our home equity to pay her rent. You made our daughter lie for you for 6 months. There's no working this out. There's just ending it with whatever dignity we have left. He started crying. Actually crying. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I could handle everything. I thought. You thought you could have everything. The affair, the money, the clean exit. You thought you could erase me and rewrite history and no one would hold you accountable. You were wrong. I opened the door. Goodbye, David. He looked at me one more time, searching my face for something. Forgiveness, maybe. Or at least anger. Something that proved I still cared. He found nothing. Because I didn't. He walked out. I closed the door and locked it. And realized I didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel vindicated. Just tired. And finally, completely free. The divorce papers came back signed 3 weeks after David left my apartment. No contested clauses. No arguments about asset division. He took his debt, I kept the house, and we both walked away from a marriage that had been dead long before either of us admitted it. I didn't feel relief when I opened the envelope. Didn't feel grief either. Just a quiet acknowledgement that this chapter was finished and another one had already begun. By then I'd been working as a fractional CMO for 4 months. The rhythm of it surprised me with how natural it felt. Mondays I worked with a healthcare software startup, helping them refine their messaging for hospital administrators. Tuesdays and Thursdays were for an e-commerce platform targeting small business owners, building their content strategy from scratch. Wednesdays I consulted for a financial services company that needed someone who understood both digital marketing and traditional relationship building. I worked from coffee shops mostly. Sometimes from my apartment when I needed quiet for strategy sessions. Occasionally from co-working spaces when I wanted the energy of other people working around me. I set my own hours. Took Fridays off completely. Started each morning with a run instead of rushing to an office where people would judge my worth by my arrival time. The money was good. Not CloudSync salary but $160,000 annually for about 30 hours of work per week. More than enough, especially without David draining our accounts for poker losses and his girlfriend's rent. I paid off the remaining home equity debt in 4 months. Started rebuilding Mia's college fund. Put money into savings for the first time in years. But the real revelation wasn't financial. It was discovering I actually loved this work in a way I'd never loved the corporate version. Each client got my best thinking without the politics. I solved their specific problems, trained their teams, delivered results and moved on. No office drama. No fighting for budget. No wondering if some executive was going to replace me because I made them feel old. My clients valued experience because they'd already tried the alternative. They'd hired young marketers with big social media followings and watched campaigns fail because enthusiasm couldn't replace strategy. They came to me wanting someone who'd actually built things before, who understood that marketing was about human psychology and business metrics, not just aesthetic content and follower counts. One Tuesday morning in March, 6 months after walking out of CloudSync, I got a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't know. Hi Vanessa. My name is Patricia Moreno. I'm a former CTO who was pushed out of a startup last year for being too technical, when what they really meant was too old. I saw your story through mutual connections. Would you be open to coffee? I think we have a lot to talk about. We met the following week at a cafe in Capitol Hill. Patricia was 56, sharp-eyed. With silver hair she didn't bother dyeing and a directness I appreciated immediately. I got replaced by a 29-year-old who'd never built a development team in his life, she said after we ordered. The board called him a digital transformation expert. His main qualification was that he'd worked at Google for 18 months as a junior engineer. How long did he last? 4 months. Then they came crawling back asking me to consult. I told them my rate was triple what they'd paid me as CTO. They paid it. I laughed. Good for you. The thing is, Patricia continued, this isn't rare. This is everywhere. I know at least a dozen women who've had nearly identical experiences. We're all talented, all have proven track records, all got pushed out for younger, less experienced people. And we're all doing fractional or consulting work now because the corporate world decided we weren't valuable anymore. It's like they think expertise expires after 40. Exactly. So I've been thinking, what if we formalized this? Created a network of experienced executives who do fractional work. We could refer clients to each other, share resources, maybe even market ourselves collectively. Over the next hour, Patricia introduced me to the concept that would become the Rebuild Collective. She'd already connected with 4 other women, all in their 40s, 50s, and early 60s, all pushed out of tech companies they'd helped build, all rebuilding on their own terms. We started meeting monthly. Just the 6 of us at first, gathering in someone's living room or a quiet corner of a restaurant, sharing war stories and client leads. Patricia had been a CTO. Sandra Kim had been a VP of operations. Elena Vasquez had led product development. Carmen Rodriguez had run customer success. And me with my marketing background. We were all good at what we did. Really good. We'd just been discarded by companies that confused age with obsolescence. Sandra suggested we create a website. Market ourselves as the Rebuild Collective. Experienced executives available for fractional leadership. Make it clear we're not looking for full-time positions. We're offering expertise on demand. We built the site together, wrote articles about the value of experience, got ourselves interviewed by business publications about age discrimination in tech. We positioned ourselves not as victims but as solutions to a problem companies were creating for themselves by prioritizing youth over competence. And slowly companies started reaching out. Startups that had hired inexperienced leaders and watched their operations fall apart. Established companies that needed strategic guidance without corporate politics. Organizations that had learned the hard way that fresh energy couldn't replace institutional knowledge. The collective grew. 10 women by summer. 15 by fall. Each with deep expertise in different areas. Each available for project work. Each refusing to accept that their careers were over just because someone had decided they weren't young enough anymore. We referred work to each other constantly. When a client needed operations help, I sent them to Sandra. When someone needed product strategy, Sandra sent them to Elena. We built a network based on actual competence and mutual support instead of corporate hierarchy and competition. For the first time in my professional life, I had colleagues who genuinely wanted each other to succeed, who shared resources without fear, who celebrated wins without jealousy. Because we'd all been through the same fire and came out understanding that we were stronger together than we ever were fighting for scraps in corporate environments that didn't value us. My relationship with Mia deepened in ways I hadn't expected. She started at University of Washington in September, staying in Seattle partly because of the good program but mostly, she admitted, because she wanted to be close to me. We established a Sunday dinner tradition. Sometimes I cooked, sometimes she did, sometimes we ordered takeout and ate on my apartment balcony watching the sunset. We talked about her classes, her friends, her struggles with trusting people after watching her father lie so systematically. I keep wondering if I'll ever be able to believe someone again, she said one evening in October. Like, how do you trust anyone when someone you thought you knew completely turns out to be a completely different person? You learn to trust yourself first, I told her. Trust your instincts. Trust your judgment. Trust that you can survive even if someone betrays that trust. The problem wasn't that you trusted your dad. The problem was that he weaponized that trust. She was seeing a therapist, working through the guilt of keeping David's secret. I was seeing one too, unpacking years of tying my self-worth to professional achievement, learning to value myself beyond what I could produce or accomplish. Sometimes we talked about David. Not often and never with the sharp anger of those first weeks. Just acknowledging the complicated grief of losing someone who'd been important even though he'd ultimately been harmful. Do you miss him? Mia asked once. I miss who I thought he was. I don't miss who he actually turned out to be. Do you think he's okay? I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that David had moved to Montana, taken a sales job with a small company, was slowly paying off his debts. Amber had disappeared completely from social media after the CloudSync disaster. Marcus Chin was apparently operating under a different name, targeting startups in Austin now. I think your father is learning consequences, I said. Whether that makes him okay or not isn't my problem anymore. Once a month, Mia and I volunteered together at a nonprofit that helped women re-enter the workforce after career gaps. I worked with women in their 50s who felt invisible, who'd been stay-at-home mothers or caretakers and now needed employment but couldn't get past age discrimination and resume gaps. You're not starting over, I told them. You're starting from experience. That's completely different. You've managed households, coordinated schedules, solved problems, dealt with crises. Those are leadership skills. You just need to learn how to translate them into language employers understand. Watching Mia listen to these conversations, seeing her grow into someone who valued integrity and resilience over appearances and shortcuts, made everything I'd survived feel purposeful. She was learning what real strength looked like, what rebuilding actually required, what it meant to refuse to let other people define your worth. On a Saturday morning in late November, exactly 1 year after that conference room meeting, I sat in my apartment with coffee and looked at my calendar for the week ahead. Monday, client strategy call at 10, content review at 2. Wednesday, speaking engagement at a tech industry conference about marketing strategy for established companies. Friday, rebuild collective monthly meeting, then dinner with Mia. My divorce was final. My consulting practice was stable and growing. Mia was thriving at school. I had a community of women who understood exactly what I'd been through because they'd survived it too. I'd heard CloudSync was struggling. Mark had stepped down as CEO last month after the Series C funding fell through. They'd hired an experienced CMO, someone in her 50s with an actual track record, but the damage to their reputation was taking time to repair. Several key clients hadn't renewed contracts. Employee morale was apparently low. I felt no satisfaction hearing this. No vindication. Just a distant acknowledgement that actions had consequences and those consequences were playing out exactly as they should. Amber was back to posting smoothie recipes and workout selfies, her brief corporate career apparently forgotten. Her follower count had dropped to 180,000. The comments on her posts occasionally mentioned that CloudSync disaster, but mostly people had moved on to the next influencer, the next drama. David was in Montana and I hoped he was figuring out who he wanted to be without debt and affairs and schemes. I didn't hate him anymore. Didn't think about him much at all. He was someone I used to know who'd made choices that had freed me from a life I'd outgrown without realizing it. I looked at the woman sitting in that coffee shop, the one I'd been a year ago, turning off her phone and sitting in stunned silence while her life dissolved. I wanted to tell her she'd be okay. Better than okay. That losing everything would force her to discover what actually mattered. That the worst betrayal would lead to the most authentic version of herself. But she wouldn't have believed me. She needed to walk through the fire to understand she couldn't be burned. I wasn't the same person who'd walked out of that conference room. I was harder in some ways, less trusting, less naive about corporate loyalty, but softer in others. More present with my daughter, more honest about my needs, more willing to ask for help. I'd stopped needing applause. Stopped needing validation from people who couldn't see my value. Stopped measuring my worth by titles or salaries or how many hours I worked. I'd built something real. Not for a company. Not for a husband. Not for anyone's approval. Just for myself. A life that felt authentic and purposeful and entirely mine. And that, I realized, was worth more than any corner office ever could be. If this story of calculated justice and powerful rebuilding had you rooting for Vanessa from start to finish, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Vanessa walked back into CloudSync as a consultant charging $500 per hour, making them pay for the expertise they thought they could replace. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more empowering stories of women who refuse to stay down. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.